And last but not least, speaking of legends, going kind of back to hip hop. So salute to R&B Radar. On Twitter, they posted Raphael Saadiq speaks on the term neo soul, and I don't know what maybe this is like Threads or something. I don't know what platform they posted on, but salute to Raphael Saadiq, a whole legend. One of my actually, I was thinking about this before the podcast. I think when I bring up that conversation, like top like 500, 400 artists, it might not sound charitable. It might not sound charitable, but I think Raphael would be like high up in that. However,
I
however,
mean, that's somewhat valid, but I just find it so hilarious that you got most people top 10, top 50, but the top 400, top 500.
I just like to be realistic when we talk
Like
about.
Taylor Swift might well damn be in my top 500. I'm joking, but
I mean, I just like to
but
be
yeah, he's definitely a legend.
realistic with numbers because there are so many artists out there. Anyway, they said Raphael Sadiq. I don't know why you didn't just say I. D'Angelo, Rest in Power, and Maxwell are not neo soul artists. Sorry, but that's the truth. Neo soul was a term created by one black executive purely as a shorthand. It helps labels internally identify which acts would not require crossover marketing budgets. Those funds were reserved for pop boy bands. Interesting. The word neo soul signaled to executives in marketing meetings these black artists might sell 100 to 50K to 350K, maybe 500K if they're really good, and 1 mil at best. It had nothing to do with the sound of the music. Hip hop was created by the people. So, again, I think again, the theme of this outside of music is just like hearing legends kind of speak on their different perspectives on some of the way things manifested throughout their genre. So yeah, this was a definitely interesting take. Neo soul is definitely a commonly used term as far as a genre of R&B these days, and I would say almost it's neo soul, but it's a term that existed for the past 30 years at this point, something like that.
Damn near.
And it's interesting. In reading this, I read it a couple times. It's not. It doesn't sound like they're inherently against it. They're just trying to say it's not applicable to him and his peers. And while they kind of break down what that it what it really meant as far as from a label perspective, it was just kind of seemed like it was just a way to identify how much the artist would sell. Kind of is the bottom line. It seems like they wouldn't want to be associated with it because they don't feel it's reflective of their art or their sound or even
I
what
think
they
he's just
would.
saying it's not
But
a
so
valid. It's not a valid genre because it was
oh,
it it was created by somebody to again like um
I gauge on
distinguish how
how
much they would sell.
it
Yeah,
was so
it's
much
not
sell.
a
Yeah,
real genre. Is what his point is.
so is he saying that it's really hip hop then? I'm
Yeah, yeah,
where
that's what I'm taking away from
the
it.
hip hop was created by the people
I don't know.
kind of seems like it's out of left field almost.
I don't know if he would. Well, in this specific post, I don't think he designates what he specifically is, but obviously it's all embedded hip hop, and it definitely embedded. I think he would more so just say R&B in general. Um, but it is interesting because I think I mean maybe depending on who you ask, maybe it does have a negative connotation. But I think if we just talk about a sound, neo soul, or it doesn't necessarily come with a negative connotation or a connotation that doesn't. It's not outside the realm of what you would put in. The interesting part is I don't necessarily put D'Angelo and Raphael in the same category. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, put on some of these artists, and it's interesting because again, it's a continually used term. So it's like, do we put these artists in the same category as we put like Ari Lennox? That's kind of interesting. But yeah, I guess if anything to glean from this, what do you guys think of I guess what he kind of broke it down and um, it's almost interesting because like from a like a consumer perspective, should should we not look at that term as valid because of its history and what it represents from a label's perspective? Um, But yeah, do you guys think is anything disingenuous or not valid when using a term um or sorry a genre applied to an artist that they don't necessarily agree that they fit in? I guess for whatever reason, whether it's because of the original history of it or because they don't feel like they're under it. Do you think that's harmful, or do you think it's really at the end of the day, it just gets us to under an idea of what the artist would sound like? What do you think, Ghost?
I I really don't agree with his take here because, like, sure, this might have been the origin of the genre name, but in my mind, like it's literally just means new soul. Like there's neo psychedelic, there's neo jazz. Like I I think he's kind of reading too much into it because even if that was the origin, like it could be it ends up being representative of just that subgenre, or if you just want to call it a genre in general. Like the D'Angelo, Dilla, they literally call themselves the Soulquarians. Like they're a collective, and they're not all of neo soul, obviously, but they were the main pioneers of it. And like those are the names, kind of like Erica Badu, like those are the names associated with neo soul.
Yeah.
And I just think that like if he's saying that just because it had an origin that was it had a certain intent behind it, that it's really hip hop and not, I don't agree with that. Like I wouldn't call I wouldn't call D'Angelo necessarily hip hop, or there's like hip hop elements in it, but there's also R&B and soul elements in it as well. So I I don't agree with this take. I think it's kind of like what's the point of saying this? So no, we're not. It's not actually neo soul because it meant this one thing. Like, so you're saying like indie as a genre, alternative as a genre, like because it had a certain meaning. Even if like alternative was meant to represent that it's not mainstream rock and that it would have less of a mainstream appeal to
Yeah.
labels, it still became the widespread phrase to use for that subgenre. So I don't agree with it. Like getting into the etymology of genre naming is kind of like what's the point? If it's a if everyone knows what it stands for, then why does it really matter what we call it if it's not something offensive?
Yeah, that's facts. Yeah, and I wonder what he would actually say to that analogy, or not an analogy, but like the alternative with rock kind of like perspective, because there's a world in which that was created purely or originally to kind of distinct. Okay, so this is it's rock, but it's not rock, or it's like a different. It's not the most popular type of sound of rock. I wonder what they would say to that. But no, you brought up, like a bunch of good points in that, and it kind of boils down to like I feel like I'm saying boils down to a lot on this podcast. Um, I wonder even if that is the creation, what would be like the negative implication if again it just that terminology kind of just gets a foundational framing of what the artist is going to sound like. Um, and yeah, then also goes back to what category would they put themselves under? And even though like you, not like you said, but like genre conversation can kind of get kind of cringe sometimes. I think maybe one day it would be worth bumping into like what do we inherently think of? It can also like a big game. What artists or what do we inherently think of when we think of a genre? Because again, I would say umbrella hip hop is the umbrella term for like everything, like from your R&Bs to uh, some of that like rap rock and new metal even. There's a lot under the category of hip hop. But I think there are some artists that are just purely like hip hop artists. So it's a category, but it's also an umbrella term. Yeah, maybe one day we'll try to make a game out of that. But anyway, um, what do you think of this post and their kind of trying to separate from that terminology, or I guess the terminology in general? Do you think what he's putting down makes sense, or do you think it's really no harm, no foul? Is
Pretty much right, right in agreement with Ghost. Um, yeah, I mean, neo soul in particular, like the name just it really is perfect for for I mean for an artist is like artists like D'Angelo and Maxwell, and I mean newer artists today too. Like it just really is a perfect name to me, regardless of the origin. And I mean, you can say too that it was originally supposed to be used as this bucket for how much they'll sell, but even still, that doesn't negate the fact that it does kind of describe the music. Like this, to me, it describes the sound of the music. I hear neo soul, I kind of have an idea of what to expect just based on those terms. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, from that standpoint, I kind of disagree. And then from what Ghost was saying too, it's like yes, maybe the origin wasn't based solely on the sound of the music per se, but um that doesn't negate the fact that like listeners are using these genres um to determine or to be able to find music that they enjoy. Like that's kind of the whole um the reason why genres stick is because it helps listeners find like artists or similar artists to the ones they like. So to 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 be against something that just comes naturally, like categorization for humans, it's just like a natural thing we do. It's kind of like you're you're being against something that's just going to continue to happen regardless. It's there's it's there's human nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on 100% board with y'all. What y'all are saying. It's kind of unfortunate because obviously, like I said, their whole legend and a lot of what describing is kind of like the quote unquote history of how the term came to be or what it represented. But it seems like we do kind of the consensus that we disagree with the line of like it had nothing. I guess it could have had nothing to do with the sound of the music, but at this point, I think we would all agree it 100% does have something to do with the sound of the music. When we see
Yeah,
what,
like it is new soul. Like there's definitely a lot of soul elements in it. It's not like it's completely out of base.
yeah, if you say neo soul, you're people are going to resonate with that and kind of get a gauge of what this is gonna sound like. And to be honest, even though like it's obviously a big thing in the world of like labels and companies and things like that, the other interesting thing is like if it, it's good for a history lesson, but just from a common consumer perspective, I don't think like what how much if I say if I present to y'all a neo soul artist, I bring a neo soul artist to like the playlist. Are y'all gonna think about how much the artist is selling? Like,
Exactly. Yes, that's completely irrelevant to like this. It's the same thing. I've already mentioned it, but like indie and alternative, it's like
yeah,
when we think of those things, we don't think, oh, this artist isn't going to be selling as much because they're independent. And really, we don't even
Yeah,
think about the
right,
fact that they're indie. Like
right, right.
it's not like, oh, they're an independent artist that actually affects my perception of how I perceive their music. Like it's just kind of doesn't end up mattering.
fair enough, fair enough. Good stuff. Well, ultimately, still salute to Raphael Saadiq. Definitely is still a whole legend. Maybe one day when we're the biggest podcast in the world and we're interviewing people, we'll have him on and we'll delve more into this type of conversation. But unless they,
As a quick side note, I want to
go
say that while my take on that holds true for most genres, I think there is one key exception where the genre name actually influences how I perceive it and if I would classify it as that, and that's shoegaze because of the
ahead, you
origin
guys now.
of the genre name, which is pretty sick. But just throwing that out there.
Um,
Fair enough. Yeah, I think I might make that episode. We just go through a bunch of genres and
Yeah,
and
that
list
would that would be fun.
and list out what artist comes to mind. Hopefully that doesn't lead to any contention because I feel like we don't always agree with the genre that a specific artist aligns with, but
It's 100% gonna attention.
That'll still be fun though.
Yeah.
fair enough. Well, unless there's anything else on this particular topic, we can move on.